Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's a rather gloomy day here in the UK, but it is almost October, so what do you expect? Now today I'm going to be talking about a great budget set of iems from a company called Hidizs. I've featured some of their products on my channel before, and I actually met the Hidizs folk at CanJam 2025 in London, and yes, now I know how to pronounce Hidizs. Now they were really nice. I even met the engineer who works on their products. Now they were particularly excited to share with me their newest budget model, which they've recently released, and it's called the MS2 Pro. They kindly supplied me a set for review, but they haven't paid me or sponsored the video or anything like that. Now these are currently retailing around $79, £58 here in the UK, which is very similar money to the Truthear Hexa and Truthear Pure, both of which have mopped up the market at this sub-£100 price amongst audiophiles. So how do these MS2 Pro compete? Well, it's interesting to note that whilst I've been evaluating these, I've also been testing the Apple AirPods Pro 3, and it's quite clear that both products are gunning for the same effect. Essentially a V-shaped sound signature, but with a focus on bringing up the details. Now get subscribed if you want to hear my thoughts on the AirPods Pro 3. There's a video on that in the works. But let's focus on the MS2 Pro and let's talk about build quality first. And it is solid. The MS2 Pros feature an all-metal construction with a nice pleather faceplate in various colours. Apparently it's inspired by rhinos. All this makes for quite a chunky unit, like a rhino I guess, with a large nozzle, so you might find it heavy and uncomfortable, especially if you have smaller ears. They also fail the bed test for me spectacularly. What that means is that they stick out far too much to be comfortable to lie on your side on your pillow with them in. The supplied cable is decent. Mine came with a 3.5mm jack termination, but you do get an option for a 4.4mm Pentagon connector. Either way, it's a 0.78mm 2-pin connection, so there's no problem at all if you want to try a different cable. You do get a rather basic carrying pouch, as well as some decent silicone ear tips. Hidizs also sent me their premium green silicone tips to try, but I did try them and I just couldn't get them to fit comfortably, so I abandoned them in favour of some of the other ones that come in the MS2 Pro pack. So anyway, in terms of technology, driver technologies, these are dual driver iems. They feature a large 10.2mm dynamic driver, as well as a proprietary balanced armature driver, which I think they call Silvertone. Now, they also feature 3 sound tuning filters, which slightly tweak the upper and lower ends of the frequency response. They're very easy to change, and I tested them with the balanced red filters. The black filters offer the most bass, and believe me, we'll get onto it in a minute, I don't think these need more bass, whilst the white filters offer slightly more pronounced upper mids and treble. Now, you will have absolutely no trouble driving these, as they have an impedance of only 17 ohms and a sensitivity of 111 decibels. So even your smartphone with a dongle should be able to drive these comfortably. I plugged them into my Hidizs AP80 Pro X. It'd be rude not to really, given that they're from the same company. How about the test music? All my usual stuff really, so I think I was listening to some of REM's IRS years albums, you know, their early stuff. The remastered versions certainly add a bit of body to the bass and some clarity, and they sound great. I've also been listening to the new Suede album, Antidepressants, which I have to say is pretty excellent for a veteran band. I think their first album came back when I went to university back in 1993. I'm sure Antidepressants will turn out to be a late career highlight. I was also spinning the definitive edition of 9 Inch Nails' 2005 album With Teeth, and of course all you Radiohead nuts would be listening like me to the live version of Hail to the Thief. So with all that music, how do they sound? Well, if I only had to use one word, I'd say lively, or dynamic, or maybe both, but then that's 2 words. Let's start with a bass response, and I'd say these pack quite a punch. There's definitely a lot of mid-bass presence here, but it's really snappy and agile. I wouldn't say that these are total bass cannons, but if you don't like bass, then these are not for you. There is some sub-bass rumble too, and overall I think the propulsive effect of the thick and meaty bass suits electronic music very well. I say thick, I don't mean overly goopy or flabby, just, yeah, nicely thick. You know what I mean. Fatboy Slim's Eat, Sleep, Rave, Repeat, for example, is irresistibly danceable with these. Thankfully, the bass doesn't swamp the lower mids. It adds a little bit of warmth, but the lower mids still come through fairly clearly. So let's talk about that mid-range. I think overall it sounds pretty well presented, with just a little bit of emphasis in the upper mids, which makes it quite a female vocal forward IEM. Particularly higher pitched female vocals. Now it might occasionally just be a little bit too much. So for example, Sia's vocals can sound just a little bit sharp at times, as can Hayley Williams's vocals on her brilliant new album. But most of the time it's pretty well controlled and just adds a bit of emphasis. The treble is on the whole pretty nice and airy. There are some treble peaks which add a sense of air and zing to the presentation. So overall I'd describe it as a classic V-shaped frequency response, but it's tastefully done and pretty enjoyable, nicely balanced with that emphasised bass and upper mids and lower treble. This works really well if you like modern music, pop, electronic. The sound then is dynamic, fun and engaging. The technicalities are where I think this set really shines for the price. You get pretty realistic timbre, especially in the mids, good separation and reasonable imaging. They'd probably be alright for gaming IEMs. The soundstage is decently wide, not the widest, these are IEMs after all, but it's decently wide and somewhat spacious. The detail resolution is where I think it scores the highest. I think you do really get a sense of the details coming through, and it feels a lot more adept than most sets at this price point. So now the big question, how do they compare with the big hitters, the Truthear Hexa? Unfortunately, I haven't heard the Pure yet. I think the Hexa, it's fair to say, are the established champs for most audiophiles at the sub-100 price point. Well, the Hexas definitely sound a lot more neutral. They actually have more sub-bass as well, but much less mid-bass, and the bass doesn't quite sound as tight as on the MS2 Pro. The upper mids are, however, much smoother, and the treble also a little less airy on the Hexa, so they sound just slightly more closed in, albeit more accurate, more neutral. Overall, the resolution feels just a little bit lower on the Hexas, but they probably suit a wider range of music and still sound great. For example, the Hexas are really excellent for jazz and classical. The difference between the Hexa and the MS2 Pro is a little bit like the difference between driving a nice comfortable BMW 5 Series family saloon, the Hexa, or a souped up BMW M3, which are the MS2 Pro. They're both really enjoyable, but in totally different ways. So overall, I think these are well built and great fun for the price, and I'd certainly recommend them as an alternative to the Hexas. Just don't expect neutrality. If you're after that slightly more mainstream V-shaped tuning to inject a little bit of energy and enjoyment into modern music in particular, then you can't go wrong with the MS2 Pro. They're really solidly built, and I'm sure they'll last a long time. So another great product from Hidizs, and thanks again to them for sending it to me. If you enjoyed the video, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and look out for more stuff coming up very soon. But for now, take care everyone.